you started therapy. You're doing the work, you're journaling, meditating, setting boundaries, healing, and you thought you'd feel better by now. But instead, you're crying more than before. You're angrier than you've been in years. Old wounds you thought were healed are bleeding again. You're breaking down in places you used to hold together. And you're wondering, am I doing this wrong? Why do I feel worse? Is healing breaking me? Here is the truth no one warns you about. Healing doesn't make you feel better first. It makes you feel everything first. The breakdown comes before the breakthrough. And today, I'm going to walk you through the ugly healing era, the phase where you get worse before you get better, so you don't give up right before your transformation. Hi, and welcome back to Miss Rain. I'm so excited to be in your ears today. If you're in a healing journey that feels like it's destroying you instead of restoring you, this episode is going to save you from giving up too early. Let me paint a picture. You finally decide to heal. Maybe you started therapy or coaching, began processing childhood wounds, set boundaries with toxic people, started feeling your feelings instead of numbing them, committed to doing the work. And at first, you felt hopeful. This is it. I'm finally healing. I'm finally becoming who I'm meant to be. But then, third week, fifth week, second month, you're not feeling better. You're feeling worse. You're crying over things that happened 10 years ago, angry at people you thought you'd forgiven, anxious about things you used to ignore, exhausted from feeling so much, doubting if this healing thing is even worth it, and the scariest thought creeps in. Maybe I was better off numb. Here is what we've been sold about healing. It's linear. Well, it's not. It's peaceful. It's not. It's quick. Absolutely not. You feel better immediately. No, you won't. We see Instagram posts about healed and whole with aesthetic photos of journals and tea. We see TikToks about entering your healed era after one therapy session. We've been sold the idea that healing is beautiful, but no one warned you about the ugly part. In this episode, we're covering why healing makes you feel worse before better, the neuroscience and psychology, the phases of healing no one talks about, why old wounds resurface when you start doing the work, the difference between healing pain and staying stuck pain, how to navigate the ugly era without giving up, and last but not least, 5 practices to support yourself through the breakdown. Here is what I need you to know. If you feel worse right now, you're not failing. You're healing. And I'm going to show you why. If you listened to our last episode, the waiting room era, you'll remember the ECG metaphor. But it applies so perfectly here that I need to bring it back. An electrocardiogram, the machine that monitors your heartbeat, shows a line. A flat line means the heart has stopped. But the line that goes up and down, that means the heart is alive. Healing is the same. If your healing journey was smooth, linear, constantly upward, that would be a flat line. That's not growth. That's avoidance. Real healing looks like one day you're feeling good, tackling your tasks, grateful for progress. The next day you're down, depressed, feeling like everything is against you. You might fall into the victim mindset. You might spiral. You might break down. And that's not failure. That's the up and down of being alive. Healing is a combination of ups and downs, not because you're doing it wrong, but because you're doing it right. The flat line would mean you stopped feeling. The chaos means you're finally letting yourself feel. Okay, so let's get into the science, because understanding why this happens will help you not panic when it does. For years, maybe decades, you've been using coping mechanisms to avoid pain. Numbing with substances, food, shopping, scrolling, staying busy so you don't have to think, people pleasing to avoid conflict, perfectionism to feel in control, dissociation to escape reality. These weren't failures, they were survival strategies. But when you start healing, you remove these protections. And suddenly, all the feelings you've been avoiding, they flood in. Dr. Bessel van der Kolk, trauma researcher and author of The Body Keeps the Score, explains, "The body keeps the score. Traumatic experiences are stored in the body and nervous system, not just the mind. When we begin to heal, the body releases what it's been holding." So when you start therapy, start journaling, start processing, your body says, "Oh, we're finally safe enough to feel this. Okay, here is everything I've been holding for you." And the result? You cry over your childhood. You rage about injustices from 5 years ago. You grieve relationships you thought you were over. Not because you're regressing, because you're finally processing. Here is the second thing happening. Your brain is literally rewiring itself. Neuroscience shows us that the brain has neuroplasticity, the ability to form new neural pathways. Every thought pattern, behavior, and coping mechanism you've had for years has created a neural pathway. Think of it like a well-worn path through a forest. Your brain defaults to that path because it's familiar. When you start healing, you're creating new pathways, healthier thoughts, behaviors, responses, while the old pathways are still there, your default patterns. Dr. Rick Hanson, neuropsychologist, explains, "The brain changes its structure in response to experience. But old neural pathways don't disappear immediately. They weaken over time with disuse, while new ones strengthen with practice." What this means for you? Your brain will resist new pathways. It will try pull you back to the familiar, even if the familiar was toxic. And this creates internal conflict, emotional turbulence, feeling worse as you fight against old patterns. You're not broken. Your brain is just trying to keep you in what it knows, even if what it knows hurt you. Now, let me introduce you to a concept from psychology that explains why things get worse before they get better. The extinction burst. In behavioral psychology, when you stop rewarding a behavior, it doesn't just quietly disappear. It intensifies first. This is called an extinction burst. For example, a child throws a tantrum to get candy. You stop giving candy when they tantrum. What happens? The tantrum gets worse before they stop. The child escalates because the old strategy isn't working, so they try harder. This happens in healing too. When you start setting boundaries, your people-pleasing tendencies might intensify. When you start processing anger, you might feel more rage than before. When you start facing your anxiety, it might feel more overwhelming. Why? Because your old coping mechanisms are having an extinction burst. They are fighting to survive. The good news? If you push through the burst, the behavior eventually extinguishes. But most people give up during the burst. They think, "This isn't working. I'm getting worse. I should stop. When actually, the intensity means it's working and you need to keep going. So now that you understand why it gets worse, let me walk you through what the ugly healing era actually looks like. Because if you know what to expect, you won't be blindsided. Phase number 1. When you first start healing, there is often a honeymoon phase. You feel hopeful, motivated, empowered, and you're telling yourself, I'm finally doing this. You buy the journal, you book the therapy sessions, you set the boundaries, and it feels good. But this phase doesn't last. Then comes phase number 2, the excavation. This is when you start digging into the wounds and you realize, oh, there is a lot here. Memories you suppressed come floating back. Emotions you buried start surfacing. Patterns you didn't know you had become glaringly obvious. You feel worse and you think something is wrong, but nothing is wrong. You're just finally seeing what was always there. After that, you go to phase number 3, the ugliest phase, the breakdown. You might cry more than you ever have, feel rage you didn't know you were carrying, question everything about your life, grieve the childhood you didn't have, mourn the person you could have been if you hadn't been hurt, feel exhausted, depressed, hopeless. And here is the brutal truth. You might look worse to other people. They might say, you seemed better before therapy. Maybe this healing stuff isn't for you. You're different now and not in a good way because they're used to the version of you that was palatable, accommodating, numb, holding it together. But that version was also suffering in silence, suppressing trauma, people-pleasing to survive. The breakdown is you falling apart so you can rebuild, and it's supposed to look messy. And then, slowly, sometimes so slowly you don't notice, things start to shift. You start phase number 4. You start integrating. The breakdowns become less frequent. The tears feel cleansing instead of drowning. You start recognizing patterns before you repeat them. You set boundaries without guilt. You feel feelings without being consumed by them. You're not healed yet, but you're different, stronger, wiser, more whole. And you realize the breakdown wasn't destroying you. It was revealing who you actually are underneath all the wounds. Now let me address something that terrifies people in healing. Why do old wounds resurface? You thought you healed that. You thought you forgave them. You thought you moved on. But suddenly, it's back. It's back. And it feels like you failed. Dr. Peter Levine, trauma expert and creator of Somatic experiencing, explains healing as happening in layers, just like peeling an onion. You don't heal a wound once and it's done forever. You heal it at different depths. First layer, surface acknowledgement. It might show like, that hurt me. Second layer, emotional processing. I'm angry about it. Third layer, somatic release. My body is releasing it. Fourth layer, meaning making. This is what it taught me. Fifth layer, integration. This is part of my story, not my identity. When an old wound resurfaces, it doesn't mean you didn't heal it before. It means you're ready to heal it at a deeper layer. For example, the first year of healing, you realize your parent was emotionally unavailable. The third year of healing, you feel the childhood grief of not being seen. The fifth year, you recognize how that wound shows up in your relationships. And in the seventh year, you release the need for them to acknowledge it. Same wound, different layers. And each time it resurfaces, you're healing it more deeply. Now, here is the critical distinction. Not all pain is created equal. There is pain that's healing you, and there is pain that's keeping you stuck. You need to know the difference. Let's start with the healing pain. This is pain that feels uncomfortable but productive, brings clarity, even if it's painful clarity, makes you feel more connected to yourself, moves through you eventually, comes with growth, even if it's slow. Here are some signs you're in healing pain. You're feeling things you used to numb. You're setting boundaries and facing discomfort. You're grieving what you didn't get. You're angry at injustices you used to excuse. You're breaking patterns that served you before. This pain is temporary. It's the darkness before the breakthrough. And then comes the staying stuck pain. This kind of pain feels repetitive and circular. It keeps you in victim mode indefinitely. It disconnects you from yourself, never moves, just loops. Comes without growth or change. Some signs you're in staying stuck pain. You're ruminating without processing. You're blaming without accountability. You're stuck in the story without writing a new one. You're identifying as broken, not healing. You're refusing support or action. This pain is a trap. It's staying in the dark because it feels familiar. So ask yourself, is this pain moving me forward or keeping me stuck? Am I processing or spiraling? Am I healing or hiding? If you're processing, keep going. If you're stuck, get support, therapy, coaching, or maybe a community. Alright, so now let's make this actionable. Here are 5 practices to help you navigate the ugly healing era without giving up. Practice number 1, normalize the mess. First, stop expecting healing to be pretty. Repeat this to yourself. I'm not broken. I'm breaking open. I'm not getting worse. I'm feeling what I suppressed. This mess is temporary. The healing is permanent. And here is a journal prompt. What am I feeling right now that I've avoided feeling before? Let yourself write the ugly truth. No one has to see it. Practice number 2, create a healing container. You can't heal in chaos. You need structure to hold the mess. So build a healing container. What that might be? Time boundaries. Designate specific times for processing. Maybe it's therapy hour, journaling time, or crying time. Space boundaries. Create a safe physical space. Maybe it's a corner of your room, a specific chair, or a walk in nature. People boundaries. Limit who you share your process with. Not everyone deserves access to your healing. Energy boundaries. Protect your capacity. Say no to draining obligations during intense healing phases. Why this works? It contains the chaos so it doesn't bleed into every area of your life. You heal intentionally, not reactively. Practice number 3. Track the patterns, not the days. Stop judging your healing by individual days. Instead of, I cried today, I'm failing. Ask yourself, am I crying less than I was 3 months ago? Am I setting boundaries I couldn't set 6 months ago? Am I noticing patterns I was blind to a year ago? Healing isn't linear, but it's cumulative. Zoom out, track the patterns over months, not days. Practice number 4. Get support. You can't do this alone. Here is what will destroy your healing: trying to do it alone. Get professional support, therapy, trauma-informed if possible, coaching, support groups, spiritual guidance. Why you need this? Because your brain will trick you. It will tell you this is too hard. You're doing it wrong. You should quit. A guide helps you see what you can't see yourself. If you can't afford professional help, free support groups, local communities, a trusted friend who've done their own healing, online communities, but just be selective with these. You cannot heal in isolation. Last but not least, remember why you started. When it gets unbearable, anchor back to why you started. Write this down and read it when you want to give up. I started healing because I was tired of numbing, people-pleasing, suffering in silence, living small. I started healing because I deserve peace, wholeness, authenticity, freedom. I started healing because staying the same was more painful than changing. Keep this somewhere visible. Read it during the breakdowns. Because giving up now means returning to the pain you were already in. At least this pain has purpose. Now here is the nuance. Sometimes you need to push through. Sometimes you need to pause. Here is how to know the difference. Keep going when you're uncomfortable but still functional. You have support around you. You're processing, not dissociating. The pain feels productive, not destructive. You're learning about yourself. And pause when you're becoming unable to function. Maybe you can't work, eat, sleep for extended periods. You're isolating completely. Pause when you're having thoughts of self-harm, when you're dissociating or numbing intensely, and when you're spiraling without processing. If you need to pause, that's not giving up. That's pacing yourself. Healing doesn't have a deadline. You can take breaks and come back. So here is what I need you to remember. You're not getting worse. You're getting real, and real is messy before it's beautiful. Healing is complex. It requires patience. You'll cry. You'll relive past traumas. Old wounds will resurface. You'll doubt yourself. You'll wonder if you're doing the right thing. You'll break down. And that's the darkness before dawn. For you, it's the darkness before the breakthrough. If you give up right now, that doesn't mean you failed. You can always come back to healing. It will wait for you. But if you can, if you have even a shred of strength left, just keep going. Because the version of you on the other side of this ugly era, she's worth meeting. Share this episode with someone in their ugly healing era. Someone who thinks they're failing because they're crying more. Someone who thinks healing is supposed to feel good immediately. Someone who needs permission to be a mess. One thing I want you to remember. The breakdown is not the end. It's the beginning of becoming. Thank you so much for spending this time with me. Until next time, stay graceful, stay powerful, and always wear your crown.